brief introduction, I'm Ian Campbell with Alpha Capital. I know we talked with Jeff a couple days ago getting this all set up, but the purpose of today's call is to go over the 401k plan benefit, talk about enrollment, benefits of saving for retirement, and helping with really the 4 decisions that you'll be faced with as you're completing that online enrollment or paper enrollment process. So without further ado, what I will be doing is shortly after this call, I'll be sending Jeff an email with the documents that we're going to be reviewing, so he can just send that off to you directly and any other eligible participants. So initially, I just wanted to see if there was any questions that you had ahead of time, or if there's anything that you wanted to specifically ask before we get started.
No, don't have any specific issues that at this point.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off. Again, Ian Campbell. I am one of the financial advisors on the 401k plan. My partner, Mark L., is also a financial advisor on the plan. We are dual on every single one of our plans, so you've got 2 of us to reach out to. One thing that's important is we're going to try to steer everybody towards the online enrollment process. It's more secure, it's faster, and it's a lot safer for everybody as well. The step 1 is to go to the provider's website, and that's here listed on the screen, yourplanaccess.net retirement plan consultants. I've actually got that pulled up on my screen in another window to give you some familiarity with the actual screen and the website. You can save this URL as a bookmark or favorites, because you'll use that for all future logins to get into the account. So the initial process is, in the top left corner is this online enrollment button. You'll click that. It'll then prompt you to type in what's called a plan password. And on that initial sheet that I was just showing you, the plan password's there in all capital letters, JVF, MAN, and then AG, for short for management. And that's going to be your plan password to get into that. So you'll type that in there and hit next. One thing that's important is there's a guided short little video on YouTube that will show you exactly probably the 10 steps that you'll go through with answering questions, setting up a username and password, putting in information. So feel free to click this little link here. It's an online enrollment video, and it just goes over the step-by-step process of completing those onboarding steps. There is one section that's about halfway through when you're completing the online enrollment before you start selecting investments, and it's going to ask you if you want to, what types of money you want to pick, and there'll be one that says all sources of money. So just remember, if you get to that step and you're like confused, which one do I pick? Just remember all sources of money is the one that you want to pick. And you'll see that on the screen. It'll be very clear, but just remember all sources. So after you clicked in the plan password, it's going to ask you to create a username and password and so on. But for the purposes of the call, I wanted to bring up the actual paper version of the enrollment form to go and give you a heads up of the type of information that you'll be filling out and putting in throughout the online, or if you wanted to complete the paper version. If you also forget that second page of that first document, that online enrollment, it's also at the top of the paper form right here where it says enroll online. Go to that website, type in that, and type in the plan password. So if you want to do that, you can do that as well. The first section is going to be all contact information for you, all self-explanatory. The one piece that you may not have at your fingertips is that date of hire. So make sure you get with Jeff and confirm that. You will need that as you're completing those steps. And then the next section is really where we'll spend a little bit more time on, is the enrollment piece of it. This is really where most of the questions you're going to be faced with. The first one being, are you going to participate or not? Hopefully the answer is yes. If you do not wish to participate at this time, you would still need to complete this paper form, the top section, and you'll select this third option, which is I elect not to contribute in the retirement plan at this time. And the reason for that is this form will serve as a waiver that Jeff has presented the plan to you. At that time, you said no, and he'll keep that for his records on file. Okay. If you say no now, the next enrollment window is July 1, or it's every two times a year, every 6 months. So it's January 1 and July 1 of every year. So if you say no, it's not a no forever. The next section is if you are going to say yes, which we hope is everybody, like I mentioned, you do have a couple options, which is the second question, is do you want to participate in a pre-tax or traditional contribution, or a Roth after-tax contribution. And you can see those are underlined here, pre-tax and Roth below. So the difference between the two is when the money is taxed. You're either going to you're most familiar probably with the pre-tax or traditional option is where you put in money today and you haven't paid taxes on it yet. And then you withdraw the money in retirement, and that's when you would pay the taxes on those distributions. Depending on your tax bracket, one may argue, either side of the point is it may make more sense to do one right now versus one in the future, but there really isn't a perfect answer. We tend to see people that are in a lower tax bracket or younger will do the Roth contribution with the hedge that they're going to make more money in the future. They're going to be in a higher tax bracket later in life, or taxes are going to get increased over time. So being mindful of what that is, you can pick and choose either or, and you can always adjust it at any time. So it's not set in stone. As an example for pre-tax, if you are looking to save as much as you can where to not let net affect your take-home pay all that much, then the pre-tax option or that traditional option is going to be the best. So the net take-home pay is not going to go down by as much as what you're saving in that pre-tax contribution. With the Roth, it would, because it's going to come off the bottom line after you pay taxes.
Okay.
With that being said, I wanted to see, do you have any questions on pre-tax or Roth at all?
No, I'm good on that. Thank you.
So the how much question is important. The national average is 8%. And you can simply click that box and put in 8%. If you want to do a different amount, you can fill out a certain percentage on that right-hand side as well. 10%, if you were to do some research and say, how much should I be saving for retirement? 10% is really the magic number or the goal that folks should be at or need to be at from a replacement of income in retirement. So being wise around those two numbers is great. If you want to put in a different number, that's fine as well. What's also important is the company match that's available to you if you participate. And the company match is called a safe harbor match. And the way that match works is it's basically an equation off of what you're putting in. And I'll explain it in a couple different ways. It's 100% match on the first 3% that you put in, and then 50% match on the next 2% from 4 to 5. So another way to say it is if you put in 1, you'll get 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3. If you put in 4%, the company match would be 3.5. If you put in 5%, a company match would be 4. So it behooves you to at least put in 5% to maximize that company benefit of that 4% match. If you do put in something greater than 5, you'll still max out at that 4%. And then a way to explain it is if you had a $1,000 gross paycheck, you're going to save 5% pre-tax. That's $50. That $50 is going to go into your account from your contributions. The company match would be $40 for a total of $90 going into your 401k plan. And like I mentioned before, is if you're going to save $50 in a pre-tax account, your contribution of $50 isn't going to go, your paycheck is not going to go down by that full 50. It may only go down by around $30. So you're going to net $30 less on your take-home pay, but you're getting a $90 benefit in your 401k account. So that's a great explanation around how powerful it is to save for retirement with that tax benefit, but also adding on to that company match is a great, great benefit. So if you haven't thanked Jeff recently, that's a phenomenal benefit to have for employees to help incentivize them to participate, but it is part of your overall benefit package as well, because it is company money that's going towards that match.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I wanted to pause there. Is there any questions about the how much or that company match at all?
I do. You did trigger a question, and this may be something you'll cover later or may even be above the scope of what we're getting into. But in terms of selecting between a Roth and a pre-tax, how is the company contribution treated, that portion treated for me when I withdraw? If I'm, in other words, if I'm doing this as a Roth, in other words, I'm paying tax as I make the contribution, so that when I draw my portion out, there's no tax on it at that point. Is that true also of Jeff's match? Is that not?
So it's a very good question. So the company match is always going to go into a pre-tax bucket, and the reason being is the company is not paying taxes on your behalf at whatever your tax rate is. So the company match will always, in every scenario, regardless of company, regardless of area, it's going to go into a pre-tax bucket. So if you were going to do the Roth contribution, let's just say you had that $1,000 paycheck, you netted say $900, that $50 is going to come out of that 900, give or take. And then your 4% company match is going to be off of the gross. So you still are going to put in 50, but it's going to be 50 from Roth, and then 40 is going to be going into a pre-tax bucket. And you'll have two different money types inside of the 401k account at Retirement Plan Consultants. And then there'll be a line item that say employee Roth contributions, $50. Company pre-tax match, $40. And that's how it would grow over time.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Yep, of course. Very good question. So I'm going to hop down to the kind of fourth and final one, which is the investment choices. So on the second page of the enrollment form, there's a list of 30 or so investment choices you can pick and choose from. All of these investments are all institutional grade mutual funds. And what that means to you is they're all low cost, or the lowest cost available to investors. And then on top of that, all of these investments are all top quartile performers or good performing funds. Part of Mark and I's role and responsibility as an advisor on the plan is to make sure this menu is dynamite today and also in quarters to come. So we very, very heavily scrutinize these investments every single quarter to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're top quartile performers and also low cost. If there is a fund that does not meet certain criteria for consecutive quarters, we'll pull that fund out and replace it with a better one. So it's constantly getting improved over time. All of these investments are a great choice, and we feel that we do a very good job of putting together this lineup. But telling you have great investments and low cost doesn't help you with that final decision. So part of our ongoing advice and education, we put together what's called an asset allocation guide, and we come up with this information every single quarter, and we'll send that to Jeff to send out to all the employees. This information is both for the decision today, but also into the future to help with that investment choice over time. All of those investments are listed on that left-hand column that we just saw. The ticker symbols in that third column here, and then the asset class that that fund represents is in that second one. And then this top larger rectangle is going to be more of the hands-on approach. We've built 5 diversified models up above here based off of our risk tolerance. So if you wanted to be a little bit more hands-on with your investment selection, you can follow one of those columns, and that's exactly how we would recommend you invest in based off of that risk tolerance. From an education standpoint, we tend to see folks that are in their 20s and 30s will be in that aggressive column. 40s and 50s will be in that moderate aggressive column. And then late 50s, early 60s, we tend to see people in that moderate column. So they start out aggressive and then they de-risk over time as they kind of hit those 10-year blocks. Again, the ask of the individual is as we come out with these quarterly updates, if you're following one of these columns, is we may change this percentage from 12 to 10 or up to 15. And we'd want you to make that change as well on your investments to give you the best opportunity of taking the least amount of risk and having the best possible performance. So that's the ask, is if you are going to follow one of those columns as those guides come out quarterly, just log in online, look at that a couple times a year, and you're good to go. The second option is going to be more of the passive approach or the hands-off autopilot mode, which is the target date funds. And the target date funds work in the way that you would find out what year it will be when you reach age 65, and that's going to plop you into one of these target date ranges. And depending on that range, that's going to be your most appropriate target date fund. And the way these work is they get more aggressive for the younger person because they're looking for growth rather than preservation. And then over time, every 5 years, they de-risk. And these are similar to the columns up above as they have their own allocation all built into that one fund. So these blue ones that I've highlighted on the bottom are going to be similar to that aggressive column. The next 4 are going to be similar to that moderate aggressive column, or 65-35 mix, or 60-40, 70-30. And then the next 3, the closer to the given year or the present year, are going to be around a 50-50 portfolio. So again, they start out at 90% in equities and they de-risk every 5 years, ultimately becoming a balanced portfolio at 50-50. So these are, again, a great choice. About 70% of folks are saving in retirement plans, are saving and selecting these target date funds as a choice for them. So they'll pick that one fund based off of their date of birth and their age, and that they'll go in with that. Most people are that passive approach where they're going to be set it and forget it and basically let it ride. So there's a couple scenarios. One's more hands-on, one's more hands-off. The third is you're free to do whatever else you want. Probably familiar to you and other 401k plans you've maybe participated in, you can pick and choose whatever you would like. And that's the same here. We just wanted to help provide some extra advice and education around what we feel would be most appropriate given those two scenarios. There's no cost of going in and out of any of these funds. There's no trading costs as well. You could change your investments every single day if you wanted to with no additional costs. So I wanted to pause there. Do you have any questions at all about this worksheet? This will be another document that'll be in the email, but I wanted to see if you had any questions about any of it.
Just a quick question. These selections are let me start over again.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, I could choose to say put direct 50% of my contribution into one of the target date funds, and then allocate that other 50% among several of the individual funds if I wanted to. Absolutely.
The one thing with that is you're kind of doing, two strategies in one, and
right.
From tracking from a performance standpoint, I personally feel it's better to commit to one and be all into one rather than having to worry about, splitting your money up.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I don't disagree. I was just wondering, if that is an option.
Absolutely. You could pick whatever combination of any of the available funds at any time.
Okay, great.
Yep. And then our contact information is, of course, going to be in the email signature block, but our contact information is always on the bottom of this form, so feel free to reach out to Mark or myself with any questions. This is not a one and done, so we're available to you as individuals to reach out to us at any time for any questions or help with anything you need. I'm going to hop back to the enrollment form. There's a beneficiary designation form. You can complete this online as well. If this does apply to you, you will have to fill out a paper form, and this is in the event that you do not name your spouse as primary beneficiary. So I'm going to rephrase that. It probably wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be, but if you do not name your spouse, if you're legally married, as a primary beneficiary, you have to fill out this form. There's a note on the bottom of this that's called spousal consent. So if you are skipping your spouse as primary beneficiary or first in line, they have to sign this, and a witness notary also has to sign it as well. One piece here is you can complete this information all online and then update this at any time online as well. So anything that you decide today, Roth, pre-tax, how much, investment choices, beneficiary, all of that can be adjusted at any time 24/7 through the website. And you'll set up your username and password through the online setup if that's what you choose. And the last and final thing, I don't have a sheet for it, but there is contact information below here for call client services on the very bottom of this form, and then email as well. If you do have an old 401k account, old IRA account that you'd like to consolidate with the 401k plan, you are eligible to roll monies into the 401k account, but it also works on the outbound. Is if you've accumulated account balance and you rolled money into it or anything, you can transfer that money out if you're no longer working with the company. So it works on the inbound and the outbound. If that does apply to you, there's a whole team at Retirement Plan Consultants that can help with that transfer from that one company over to the new plan, or also on the outbound from this plan outbound. There's a dedicated representative by the name of Stephanie Wolf. So if that does apply to you or to anybody else, feel free to reach out to us and we can get you connected with their team and they can help with that coordination. And their 1-800 number is below on the bottom of this form, as well as the bottom of that, and also on the website too. Or as you can see here, it's on the bottom of this website at the very, very bottom. But that is all the information we want to cover at this time. Is there any final comments or questions that you have at all, Brian?
No, you've just been very thorough, and I think we've got it covered.